nation, where unknown forces strike the edge of ecology.
Democracy before profit.
Hi, it's Saturday afternoon in Brighton on the 17th of January 2015 at the clock tower, and there's a banner just been put up, Occupy Democracy Brighton, white lettering on black with one of the good old C&D logos, SCO, being put up just beneath the Princess of Wales mosaic on the western side of the clock tower, on a kind of traffic island that's recently been repaved to join onto the main part of the street. And I think there's going to be some sort of a speech at 3, which is bang on now actually, so they're just about to do it, reading out some I guess not demands but some requests or wishes by the Occupy movement, I think particularly the one in Brighton, about the kind of society they want to see. So I'll just hang on and see what happens. Here we are.
Salutations, people of Brighton.
Here we are, he's off. I'll try and get a bit nearer.
Brightonians, lend me your ears. Please gather round. We don't really need to be using this microcube, but we will anyway.
I would, because it ain't that loud.
Nice bit of feedback. Please gather round. Please come a little closer. Okay, thank you for coming. This is the launch of Occupy Democracy Brighton. I'm just going to say a couple of words quickly for people who don't know what's been happening in Parliament Square, where Occupy Democracy have been occupying once a month since October. The occupation started on the 17th and ran through to the 26th of October, 9 days. Cost the Metropolitan Police and Boris Johnson £250,000 trying to crush that protest. Overwhelmingly disproportionate police force, 140 officers to remove some tarpaulin from 30 activists. Thousands and thousands of people turned up through the course of that occupation, and we've been returning once a month to Parliament Square to protest the democratic deficit in this country, where we are not represented by our elected representatives. A number of things have been censored about the occupations in Parliament Square. The first of these is that we are formulating a list of demands which are popular. There's a full list of demands you can read on Occupy Democracy's website, occupydemocracy.org.uk. I could read them out here, but I'd rather get to the discussion. But it's important that we all know that that is a focus, because the media have been censoring that information. Demands are being formulated under 3 headings: people before profit, environment before profit, and democracy before profit. This initiative is to support the national demands being formulated at Parliament Square by formulating local demands of the City of Brighton. To that end, we have a list of demands that have been solicited from the community for us to consider and hopefully pass. So I'm going to stop talking in a moment, and I'm hopefully going to initiate a discussion amongst us all, which is why I'd like us all to come closer, so we don't have to use this microphone.
I can't hear it then.
Okay, so these demands will be subject to an ongoing, open and democratic process of consultation, refinement and improvement. Please feel free to join the discussion, add your own proposals or amendments now by just putting your hand up, and or online on the Occupy Democracy Brighton Facebook profile, which is facebook.com/Occupy Democracy Brighton. These local demands are intended to support the national and international list of demands which is being formulated at Parliament Square. You can also get involved there, occupydemocracy.org.uk. First off, this is for everybody's consideration. So, do we agree with this statement? It has been proposed that while the primary target of our local demands should be Brighton and Hove City Council, our further targets should include, but not be limited to, all the corridors of power. Our local media, the multinational corporations and banks who dominate our city. Ultimately, we are agreeing these demands of ourselves in order to collectively imagine the kind of society we want to be. We do not want to initiate a war of demands, we want to find our common ground. Are there any objections to that proposal? We get a show of hands that we've understood and we support that proposal. Fantastic, we have made our first inroad into having some demands. Okay, so here is the list of demands. The first heading is people before profit. And the first demand under that heading is to save the Brighton Unemployed Centre. Do we have anybody from the Brighton Unemployed Centre who would like to say a few words regarding that messy situation?
Thank you. Well, I don't know where to start really because it's so bloody complicated. Basically, for years, the Brighton Trades Council, which is run basically by a small far left sect, Trotskyist sects and so forth, have decided that it'd be a really good idea not to spend any money on the building, maintaining the building, because they want a much bigger building somewhere in the centre of Brighton. And what's this the centre in Hollingdean, which has been there for now 15 years and has built up very good connections with the local people up there, and loads of people depend on it. They've decided that money shouldn't be spent on that building, and instead it should be saved up in this huge building fund, which they called, which amounted to over £500,000. But the problem is, of course, is if you don't spend any money on a building, it starts to fall down. And the problem also for them was the fact that they had the responsibilities for repairs, because it wasn't like a tenancy where you, like when you're renting your own home, where you expect the landlord to do the repairs. It was a commercial tenancy. It's one where the tenant, the business that's supposed to be running it and that's got the money to do it, is supposed to be responsible for the repairs. So what's happened is they've now got this huge liability to repairing the building. They've managed to transform what was a repair-all lease into a rebuild-all lease.
Are there any objections to the demand that we save the Brighton Unemployed Centre?
No.
Could we get a show of hands for all in support of saving the Brighton Unemployed Centre? So that demand is passed. Next up, save our... Yeah, let's have a round of applause. Woo! Save our Brighton Hippodrome. We've had some good news recently with the View Cinema franchise pulling out. Is there anybody from the Brighton Hippodrome here who would like to talk about that situation? Bring Brighton's empty properties back into use by creating safe emergency shelters and kitchens. Okay, I think that's, let's have a show of hands, that's all passed, everybody's understood. So that's, we've agreed 3 of our proposals under the heading People Before Profit. The next proposal is contentious. It's been floating around the council for a long time. They've been promising to deal with it for a long time, but nothing's happened as far as I'm aware. Please illuminate me if it has. Create a permanent travellers' site to end the persecution of traveller communities. Would anybody like to speak to that proposal? Would anybody like to hear that proposal again? It's been kicking around the council for a long time. They've been saying that they will create a permanent travellers' site. They've been designating travellers' sites. They've been talking about it most of my life. I grew up in Brighton. It's a floater.
As I understand it, the problem is that the Greens are supporting the permanent traveller site, but the other 2 parties are opposing it for their own opportunistic reasons. So that's why it keeps getting blocked. We put it forward. I'm in the Green Party. So we put it forward loads of times, and every time they block it. So, but it should be on the list of demands. It's a really important thing to do.
Brilliant. Okay, so no objections? Nobody else want to speak to that? I'd say that's passed. Brilliant. The next proposal under the heading People Before Profit. End workfare, end zero-hour contracts, make wages fair and livable for all. Would anybody like to speak to that proposal? Okay, the penultimate demand under this heading, People Before Profit, is for fair, affordable rents for all. Would anybody like to speak to that proposal? Are there any objections to that proposal? Fantastic. Woo! Okay, the final proposal under this heading, People Before Profit. Close the Edo bomb factory and reclaim our status as a peace messenger city. Are there any objections to this proposal? Would anybody like to speak to this proposal? Please do, yes, sir.
Do something and close the bloody factory.
I think I'm right in saying that Smash Edo did organise a tour of the city, looking at the connections between the factory and the city and stopping at all of the corporations who profit directly from the arms trade. I think the worst offender's Barclays. It might have been some time ago, but there's ongoing stuff at Barclays. But yes, that's a great proposal, and you might want to speak to that. So that's
And there's demos every week on Wednesdays outside the factory.
yeah, demos every week, Wednesdays outside.
They make lots of noise, lots of music, and take their own things.
Okay, so we are now through our demands of People Before Profit. These demands will be emergent. We can revisit them at any time. The idea is to build a movement around these demands. We feel like these demands have the potential to galvanise all of us. Okay, let's move straight on to the next section, which is Environment Before Profit. The first proposal for a demand is no gambling, £37.5 million on the I-360. Does anybody want to speak to this proposal? Are there any objections to this proposal? Are we in agreement? We do not want the council to gamble, well, to give Marks Barfield, the private developer, £37.5 million to gamble on a vanity project on the seafront.
You can't really stop it though, it's already been done.
Well, I could make a couple of suggestions to that. We'll come to that in any other business, but there are ways and means. Yeah. So, no gambling, £37.5 million on the I-360. Are there any objections?
No giving it away.
No, yeah. Okay, is that passed? Fantastic. Moving right along. The next demand is for no £540 million overdevelopment of Churchill Square shopping monstrosity. If you're not aware of the plan recently put forward and under consideration by Brighton and Hove City Council is to demolish everything south of Churchill Square, expand Churchill Square down to the seafront at a cost of £540 million because we've got money to burn. Would anybody like to speak to this proposal? It's being considered now. It's under consideration, and they're very proud of the proposal. They think it's great.
I don't support it, but it's not how many is private. I don't support it anyway, but it's not the council.
Agree, objecting to that.
I'm not the. Would anybody care to hazard a guess as to how many houses you could build for £540 million?
500 houses, maybe.
I'd say at least that.
As a norm.
Okay. Are there any objections? Are we in favour of this demand, by a show of hands? Fantastic. I feel a little like a bingo hall. This isn't a usual thing to happen at a GA. Normally we debate lots and people disagree and there's a bit of argy-bargy wrangling, but this is brilliant. Okay, I'm imagining this will also be popular. The third demand under the heading Environment Before Profit is to build affordable green social housing. Would anybody like to speak to this proposal? To build affordable green social housing. It's not rocket science. We know how to do it. Are there any objections to this proposal? Are we all in favour of this proposal? Fantastic. The next proposal, under this heading, Environment Before Profit, is to ban private traffic from the most polluted areas of Brighton. Would anybody like to speak to this proposal? Are there any objections to this proposal? Well, do we have agreement on this proposal?
It's too cold to stand around.
Fantastic. I was expecting that to be a little tougher, but brilliant. The next proposal is to require buses and taxis to use less pollutant or electric engines. Would anybody like to speak to this proposal? To require buses and taxis to use less pollutant or electric engines. Are we in agreement? Hurrah! We did have an alternative proposal which encompassed those last two because some people on the internet thought that it was a bit much, it was a bit strong, so I'm just going to read this alternative proposal out anyway. To make public transport affordable and inclusive to encourage less car travel and ownership. Yeah, great, so we can have all of those.
And just to highlight that the bus company isn't run by the council, it's a profit-making business. Not many people know that. They think because they bid buses they were run by the council, but they're a profit-making business. They make millions.
Anybody who couldn't hear, the bus company are a private company. They are not a council company. They are not. It's not a public service. They're a profit-making entity. That's why the bus fares are so extortionate.
I was told recently, the company Go Ahead is a total commercial monopoly. It's total. And they apparently made 50 million last year from Brighton and Hove. 6 million went to the shareholders. Over 10%.
People who get about by one of the least polluted means ever, you know, and you're standing on the side of the road for hours for a bus just so they can make a lot of money profit. It's nuts.
Take a closer look at their operation. Okay, we're through the Environment Before Profit. We're now in the last section of the demands, and there's only 4 left. So if you're getting restless, bear with us, we're nearly there. The last section is Democracy Before Profit. And the first demand under that heading is to build a representative, democratic, e-voting and discussion forum which involves and empowers local residents. Does that make sense? Are we all hearing that? Oh, do we have an objection, our first objection? I think I do, but do you want to just tell everybody?
Right, basically my issue with, I don't have an issue with the whole premise of it, but my issue is with the e-voting part of it. As part of the Edward Snowden leaks, it's already been demonstrated that GCHQ and the NSA has the ability to manipulate Twitter and Facebook polls, so I don't really trust if there was an e-voting system that would be put in place.
Okay, please just come and grab the mic.
It might exclude homeless people or people who don't have access to computers.
Okay.
I'm just wondering whether, like, the Rise Up email, they have teams that have blocks to GCHQ and stuff like that, don't they? Wouldn't there be that?
I think it principle is good.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about this.
They change the code all the time,
So I think the issue is not necessarily with the Rise Up servers, but with the tubes that they would be using, as in the lines of communication.
Okay, does anybody have a proposal to amend this proposal? Adam, I'm looking at you. Anybody have a means that we could edit this on the spot, or should we park it for now? Park it? Does anybody especially want to keep discussing it and try to amend it now? Okay, so let's park that. Let's park it. Yeah. Okay, the next demand. Democracy before profit. Create a public internet service provider to provide affordable, high-quality broadband to the city's residents.
That's a good one.
Boring? Free internet? Boring? Really? Fair enough. Would anybody like to speak to this proposal in a slightly more constructive fashion than Jackie?
I guess a lot of people can afford the internet already, in which case it'd be good that it was going to just those that can't afford it. I guess that's what you meant. You know what I mean? As opposed to it goes to everyone, loads of people who just already can. Yeah. As opposed to,
We checked this one out, roughly how much it would cost, and Dorset Council were looking to install a public internet service. It's apparently quite common in America. They've got public internet service providers. The cost to Dorset Council, the operational cost, was just over £1 million. So if we don't redevelop Churchill Square, we could have 540 years of free internet. So, not to lead that decision at all, but are there any objections? No? Yes, Jackie?
I think it's much better if people come together to talk about things rather than using computers. People tend to get a bit carried away with themselves and their negative viewpoints when they're on computers, and a lot of really good discussion sites seem to get bombarded by troll-type rubbish.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the last point as well about building a representative forum for residents, because obviously, as Adam said, the internet isn't optimal there either. That wasn't an objection. So, the third demand in democracy before profit, which we haven't actually managed to agree any demands under that section yet. No pressure. All local councillors and MPs to choose between their duty to the people or their other business concerns. No conflicts of interest.
Candidates should pledge to drop their business interests for the duration that they will be in office.
Democracy before profit.
The information where unknown forces strike the edge of ecology.